Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fourth panel under the theme focusing on enhancing interoperability among land forces in Africa and beyond, to be moderated by Brigadier General Patrick Karuretwa. Brigadier General Patrick Karuretwa is the Director General of the International Military Cooperation in the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Rwanda. In addition to this position, he also serves as the President of the Military High Court. With a military career that spans almost 34 years, General Patrick Karuretwa previously served as the Principal Secretary to His Excellency the President of the Republic of Rwanda from 2014 to 2019, as well as the Defense and Security Advisor to the President from 2011 to 2014. He is a graduate of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University in the United States of America, where he obtained 2 master's degrees in law and diplomacy and international law. He also holds a bachelor's degree in law from the National University of Rwanda. With a special forces background, General Patrick Karuretwa military experience includes serving as Head of Operations and Training in RDF's 2nd Infantry Division and a Senior Officer in the Republican Guard Unit. He is an alumni of the Rwanda Defense Force Command and Staff College. Please join me in welcoming General Patrick to moderate this session.
Thank you very much, MC, for this introduction. Excellencies, heads of delegation, general officers, senior officers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the 4th and last panel of the Land Forces Commanders Symposium. The discussion we are about to begin will focus on a critical dimension of collective security, and that is interoperability among land forces. Before we begin though, let's make sure that we understand exactly what interoperability is. And like most notions that are used across several disciplines, the concept of interoperability is often understood or interpreted in different ways. But for the purpose of this discussion, allow me to suggest one of the most widely used definitions, which describes interoperability as the ability for allied militaries to act together coherently, efficiently, effectively to achieve tactical, operational, and strategic objectives. It is also widely accepted that interoperability in the military context, because it's used in other contexts as well, including health and others, in the military context, interoperability largely involves 3 dimensions. There is the technical dimension, and that is communications, information sharing systems, and networks. Then there is the procedural dimension, and that relates to doctrine, tactics, and procedures. And finally, there is a human dimension of interoperability, which is about training, language, mutual trust, and culture. Now, I have just suggested some of the most commonly used understanding of this concept, but as His Excellency the President of the Republic of Rwanda said yesterday during his opening remarks, we should be prepared to challenge assumptions. So if anyone disagrees with the definition I just shared, do not hesitate to say so and to suggest alternatives. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all agree that we currently live in an era where the nature of the threats we are confronted with largely transcend political borders as well as geographical and cultural distinctions. Therefore, the ability of our forces to operate seamlessly together across borders, doctrines, and technologies is no longer optional. It is essential. Yesterday morning, His Excellency the President also advised us to be frank with one another. And from this perspective, ladies and gentlemen, I believe it is fair to say that there has been some progress. There has been some progress on the continent with respect to interoperability, notably through regional frameworks such as EAC, ECOWAS, SADC, and others. And I'm sure the panelists will touch on this shortly. Meetings and symposiums like this one are held across the continent. Joint training and multinational exercises are conducted. Trainers and trainees are exchanged among our military schools, and so on and so forth. And this is important. These are helpful undertakings as they help us to know each other better. They help us to better understand each other, and perhaps even to learn to trust each other. And that is already an important step towards interoperability. However, you will agree with me that despite this progress, since we agreed to be honest with each other, we have to acknowledge that there remain significant gaps. Gaps in terms of doctrine, communication systems, resource capacities, among others. And these gaps continue to limit our ability to optimize our cooperation, our ability to work with each other. Our goal in this session, therefore, will be to explore practical, actionable, and realistic ways to bridge those gaps. To bridge those gaps through harmonized doctrines, joint exercises, compatible technologies, and strong partnerships. All this to ensure that African land forces and our partners, non-African partners, can join forces to respond effectively, both regionally and in collaboration with global partners. And for this important discussion, we have gathered three highly distinguished speakers whose extensive professional experience undoubtedly involved dealing with our subject matter, which is interoperability. The ground rules for this panel will not be significantly different from those of previous panels. Each speaker will be invited to issue brief opening remarks, after which we will hopefully have a robust interactive conversation on this exciting and timely topic. And time permitting, we will end the session with concluding thoughts from each of the panelists. And as I invite the speakers to deliver their opening comments, I will be giving a brief introduction that covers only a fraction of their extensive and quite impressive biographies. And that's because I want to be respectful of your time as the symposium draws to a close this afternoon. Let me begin on my right. Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai, retired Lieutenant General, is a distinguished Nigerian military officer, diplomat, scholar, and entrepreneur, whose career spans over 4 decades in 4 decades of dedicated service to his nation. He joined the Nigerian Defense Academy in 1981 and served in numerous command and staff positions, including Brigade Commander in the Niger Delta, Commandant of the Nigerian Army School of Infantry, and Director of Procurement at Defense Headquarters. He also served as Force Commander of the Multinational Joint Task Force that was established in 1994 to fight Boko Haram and enhance security across the Lake Chad Basin. In 2015, President Buhari of Nigeria appointed him Chief of Army Staff, a position he held until January 2021. Thereafter, upon his retirement, General Buratai was appointed Nigeria's ambassador to the Republic of Benin. General Buratai holds a Bachelor and Masters of Arts degrees in history from the University of Maiduguri in Nigeria. He also holds a Master's of Philosophy in Security Studies from Bangladesh University of Professionals, as well as a Certification of Education from the Nigerian Defense Academy, among other academic qualifications. General Buratai, finally, has also earned multiple honorary doctorates, as well as numerous decorations under various national and international honors. General, sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Let me start by appreciating the Army Chief of Staff, Rwandan Army, or Defense Forces, for this special invitation. I was here last in 2017. I was then Chief of Army Staff, and I was privileged to be at the Command and Staff College of the Rwandan Armed Forces, where I was a panelist. I never expected that I will come back, to Kigali again, Rwanda, after retired almost 5 years ago. But I really appreciate, and the reception has been quite wonderful. I appreciate you. Let me get this right. The theme of this conference, leveraging land forces capabilities for enhanced implementation of peace and security strategies. And to this specific topic, enhancing interoperability among land forces in Africa and beyond. They are very quite apt. And when you talk of interoperability, it's not necessarily during operations. It should be established from the beginning at the peacetime. And I'm quoting the moderator, General Patrick, to be frank. As a starter, let me give very brief comments on how I got my correspondence to come here. It was on a Thursday, and just last week, it's not up to a week, Thursday, that was 17th, no, 16th of this month, and I was supposed to leave here at least 19th. But I got it at night, and I tried to reach the general from the numbers quoted, on the letter that invited me. I called up to 10 times or so, or throughout the weekend. I couldn't get the general. And I sent email, and up to today, I have not gotten the reply from the email that was given in the letter. Well, this is just to bring one big challenge that we're, talking of interoperability. I think we don't have to wait until when operations are on for us to communicate efficiently amongst each other. We must devise a means, the armed forces of the African continent, to see how they can communicate quickly and efficiently. And that is one of the technical aspects which is key, fundamental. I remember I was with the United Nations in Angola for RIA, and we had this EMASAT communication, satellite communication, seamless communication, and we have functional radio that you can talk from one team side to the other. You can communicate and send satellite messages from one team side to the other and the headquarters or regional headquarters. Very easy. We don't have to wait, as I said, until operations start before we start, getting interoperability, into the correct order. So this is a food for thought. I think this conference, this symposium is timely. It's very important, very necessary for us to establish peacetime communication, peacetime interoperability. Then once it is operational time, it transits very seamlessly, very easily. So let me further state that, what are the current state of interoperability within the African continent, within the African operation environment? From what we can realize is that it is fragmented at this point, and in most cases, they are ad hoc. Similarly, there are disparities in training and equipment, especially, as I mentioned, communication equipment and incompatibility of communication systems. We get our communication from different sources, different countries, and different models, different copyright, instructions. Now, I was a commander of the multinational joint task force, and we had the contributing countries who are still Nigeria, Chad, Cameroon, Niger, and Benin Republic. I'm happy the rep of the army chief of Benin is here. And I was the one that formed the second phase of the MNJTF as the commander. I commanded, the second phase. Initially, it was in Chad, in Baga, in Nigeria, but the headquarters now was moved, after reorganization, and I was appointed the first commander of the reorganized with the headquarters in N'Djamena, Chad. And what happened? To even get our equipment, this is a practical, experience, and this is very important for us to take note. The equipment were provided, the communication equipment were provided, from different sources: France, Germany, and UK. The mobility aspects were also provided from different countries. But the troops were contributed by the troop contributing countries, as I mentioned. So how does that achieve the desired interoperability? Because, first it will achieve because the source of the equipment are there. But if we are to bring our different equipment from our countries, then we'll have problems. Those of you that have operated in AMIS in the Sudan, we had seen critical gaps in logistics, medical evacuation, and of course, unified command between contingencies. This brings to mind the other aspect of training, doctrine, which we need to harmonize, to train. And this can be done under the AU auspices. Taking our minds back also, our experiences in ECOMOG, that's in Liberia and Sierra Leone, there are several cases of incompatible equipment, as well as unstandardized rules of engagement, and there have been a lot of friction. I'm happy with this conference, with this symposium. It's quite timely, and I believe this is quite strategic thinking. I want to once again commend the Army Chief of Staff of the Rwandan Army. Let me also speak on harmonizing doctrine and the command. We need to develop common operational manuals. We need to establish joint headquarters. We need to have joint headquarters. And also, we have to standardize our planning processes. Well, I'm happy to state that the AU has these documents, but lack of continuity or lack of follow-up are also major setbacks to our ability to operate seamlessly amongst our armies during operations or even during peacetime. I was privileged to be part of the documentation team, the team of experts that formalize, discuss, and produce the logistic doctrine, the standard operating procedure for African standby force, and even, the logistic component, the training component. The documents are there in AU. Between 2006, 5, 6, 7, we traveled to Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, Gaborone, in Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, and Abuja to harmonize these documents at different stages. I think there is need to contact the AU to get these documents back and get it operationalized. And this will help in interoperability amongst our forces. It's quite fundamental. Now, talking of harmonizing doctrine and command, we have seen the progress through the South African Development Commission, or Southern African Development Commission, SADC for short, standby force, developing a regional brigade with common procedures. This is quite fundamental. But let me use this opportunity to also commend Rwanda for the bilateral relations. Yesterday, there was extensive discussion on bilateral initiative. When you talk of bilateral, it does not mean that you are also jettisoning multilateralism. They go hand in hand. As the Army Chief said yesterday, it's the foundation. Bilateral relations or bilateralism is a foundation for the multilateral initiative. And that's what is happening in Mozambique. They were there, they were able to hold the ground, stabilize, and then SADC came in with her forces and equipment. How compatible their equipment are is another matter. But I think this is the right point to discuss that. AMISOM, Somalia, created a joint operations center harmonizing command between troop contributing countries for offensives. This is also a key factor. Going back forward, I'm quoting the experience of our troops in West Africa, which the initiative to deploy ECOMOG in Liberia and Sierra Leone was essentially a Nigerian initiative, or ECOWAS initiative. It was an ECOWAS initiative. UN did not come in, and AU mandated command chains and missions protocols came up at a much later stage. So the need to harmonize all these things at the regional levels are quite important for us in order to move forward. And I believe interoperability is fundamental. I still refer to many of our peacekeeping operations under the United Nations auspices. Nobody will complain of communication. So we must start now. We must get it right, peacetime, as well as during periods of conflicts or disaster periods where we can manage our troops deployment, manage the operations, and effect systematic approach to a very successful operation, whether it is kinetic or non-kinetic, as we had discussed, humanitarian aspects, or what we call the CIMIC activities. They are all fundamental. We must communicate, we must liaise, we must understand, we must operate with the most simple and effective equipment. Yesterday also we discussed the issue of drone. They must be harmonized. I think this is the time for us to look at it critically so that we don't have different types of drones littering our continent. We should be able to understand each of the capabilities and determine a particular one or two or three so that it is standard. And the training manual, the doctrine are streamlined towards that direction. So once again, I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for these very thoughtful and enriching insights that include examples from your experience. You mentioned a number of very important things. One of them is that we need to strive to establish interoperability during peacetime. We do not wait for operations to begin, for war or disaster to begin, to then try to establish interoperability. We do that in anticipation of those things. We do that during peacetime. The example you gave is indeed an interesting one, the first one, because indeed I was traveling when you were getting ready to come here, and by the time you arrived, I tried to call and your phone was not connected on the network. So interoperability issues right there. You also said something very important that many people may not be aware of, the fact that the African Union already has a number of documents that provide for interoperability under the framework of the African Peace and Security Framework that's there, and that it is a lack of follow-up that makes it, that delays our efforts to establish interoperability. So we know where to start. Thank you very much indeed for this contribution. Moving further on my right, our second speaker is Lieutenant General David Kipkemboi Keter. I hope I did well with the pronunciation. General Keter is a distinguished officer in the Kenya Defense Forces, currently serving as commander of the Kenya Army. He was commissioned on the 3rd of August, 1990. His professional journey has been shaped by extensive exposure to command, staff, and logistic leadership roles across different echelons of the Kenya Army and Defense Headquarters. Some of his recent appointments include Chief of Logistics at Kenya Army Headquarters, Commander Kahawa Garrison, and Assistant Chief of Defense Forces Personnel and Logistics at Kenya Defense Headquarters, before he was elevated to his current position of Commander Kenya Army. The General Officer has attended several professional and strategic courses, both in Kenya and abroad. His exemplary service earned him a number of decorations and awards, including Chief of the Burning Spear, 20 years of dedicated service medal, and the Constitution medal, among others. General, sir, your audience.
Thank you very much, Brigadier General Patrick. Distinguished guests, esteemed land forces, commanders, and chiefs of staff, partners, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is an honor to share my thoughts in this summit under the theme, leveraging land forces capacities for enhanced implementation of peace and security strategies. Our collective presence affirms our commitment to a stable and secure Africa. Africa's evolving security landscape, border insecurity, insurgencies, organized crimes demands collective action. No nation can stand alone against these transnational threats. Adversaries exploit gaps in cooperation and technology. We must adopt, modernize, and synchronize. The African Land Forces Summit provides us a platform to convert challenges into shared opportunities. Understanding interoperability. Interoperability means the ability of different armed forces or coalitions to operate together coherently and effectively. It relies on shared doctrines, communication systems, technologies, and procedures. It is essential for peacekeeping operations, ensuring unity of effort between military, civilian, and humanitarian actors. Humanitarian assistance, which focuses on enabling synchronized responses and efficient resource use. In counterterrorism, it focuses on facilitating intelligence sharing, communications, and coordinated tactical actions. Successful interoperability goes beyond technology. It requires doctrinal alignment and cultural understanding. Exercises such as Africa Endeavor and Justified Accord have proven the value of joint training and shared communication standards. African security environment challenges and opportunities. Key challenges is cross-border threats, which is terrorism, insurgency, pandemics, and climate-driven disasters, which demand integrated responses. We have in existence institutional frameworks, that is the African Union Peace and Security Council, and the regional blocs, ESF, IGAD, SADC, and ECOWAS. They provide mechanisms for early warning, standby forces, and peace missions. We have the diversity of forces, differences in size, capabilities, and the language pose challenges, but also foster innovation and adaptability. The path to enhance interoperability. We are talking of doctrinal harmonization, and I'm very happy that the last presenter was able to speak to this. Develop joint SOPs, model on successful alliances like the NATO. Joint training and exercises. This must build trust, validate tactics, and ensure compatibility through frequent regional and multinational drills. Intelligence and information sharing, establishing a secure, trusted systems for real-time data exchange. Technology and logistics, invest in interoperable systems, standardized equipment, and unified logistical support structures. I will now move to the Kenya's contribution and our experience. In participation in multinational missions, we have been actively involved in roles in AMISOM, ATMIS, AUSOM, and UN missions in Liberia, Sudan, and Sierra Leone. The liberation of Kismayo stands as a benchmark of successful joint operations. Enhancing regional interoperability, regular participation, and hosting of East African Standby Forces exercises. Key to this is mentorship of the Somali security forces and establishment of joint operational command centers. Training and doctrine sharing through humanitarian peace support schools. Our role in the regional forces, Kenya was the first East African Standby Force member to validate, pledge forces, and ratify its establishment agreement. This experience demonstrates the need for harmonized communication, logistics, and continuous joint training. Within the East African Regional Force, that is ICRAF experience, deployment to Eastern DRC highlighted real interoperability issues doctrine harmonization, logistics synchronization, and multinational command coordination. In our Somali operations, it has revealed practical challenges, that is, differing communications, logistics chains, and languages. This shows the importance of having SOPs, relationship building, and constant dialogue among the commanders deployed in the theater. Challenges and key lessons from the Kenya's experience. In terms of readiness camps, varying levels of preparedness complicate coordination. Equipment incompatibility, non-standard systems, intercommunications, and logistics. Doctrinal diversity necessitates joint SOPs to ensure unity of effort. Language and culture communication barriers can slow operations. We have the big issue of resource limitations. Interoperability is costly and requires sustained investment. We have also the issue of political sensitivities. Concerns about sovereignty affect regional commitment. Coordination under pressure. Complex crises test unified command and logistic systems. Kenya's leadership in interoperability. That is one hosting multinational exercises. Example is the Justified Accord 2025, which involved about over 15 countries from Africa, the US, and Europe. The focus area was multinational planning, which focuses on realistic mission-based coordination, live firing, and ground integration, testing night operations, and real-time coordination. Medical and humanitarian operations, MEDICAP, close-quarter battle and field exercises. That, for example, exercise Ushirikiano, Imara exercise, Usalama Baharini. This builds trust, validates our tactics, common tactics, and reinforces interoperability. Regional interoperability exercises, the African Endeavor. Africa's largest annual communication CIS exercise enhances communication standards across the 24 African nations. Kenya's role includes the hosting and planning forums for experts, testing real communication systems in operational scenarios, standardizing tactics, techniques, and procedures, drafting joint manuals integrated into African Union and regional doctrines, building lasting professional relationships to enhance coalition effectiveness. In terms of diplomatic and policy engagement, Kenya leverages the defense cooperation frameworks, key features which include joint planning and shared standards, technology and capability development, multinational training, knowledge sharing, and AI ethics workshop, which was held the African Regional RIM Conference, which was held in 2024 in Nairobi. Promotes doctrinal harmonization, leadership development, and shared training standards across the continent. Our way forward in terms of interoperability in African land forces. In terms of capacity building, establish regional centers of excellence and institutionalize train-the-trainer programs, doctrine development, create and periodically review joint doctrines addressing emerging threats like cyber and hybrid warfare. Trust and mutual understanding, enhance transparency and continuous dialogue among the member states. Standardization and technology, adopt unified SOPs, invest in secure communications and cyber defense systems, institutionalize collaboration, strengthen frameworks like the East African Community, ECOWAS, SADC for structured collective response, transform Africa's global role, build rapid continental response teams, leveraging on new technologies. Attract partnership, effective interoperable forces make Africa a trusted partner in global security and innovation. In conclusion, Africa's complex challenges offer opportunities for transformation through strengthened cooperation. Interoperability is achieved through shared doctrine, standardized procedures, and technology adoption. Investing in people, innovation, and dialogue ensures long-term stability and readiness. Kenya reaffirms its commitment to regional and global peace through leadership, participation, and partnership. Let us embrace unity, trust, and collaboration to safeguard Africa's future and make it a model of global collective security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Issa. If you would press again on your... Yeah. Thank you very much, General Issa, for this very eloquent expose, not only from Kenya's perspective on the subject matter, but also more regional perspective. You stressed that today no nation can succeed on its own in pursuing sustainable peace and security. You've talked about the importance of joint exercises such as African Endeavor. And you've provided some very concrete steps in terms of our way forward that include institutional capacity building, common doctrine and SOPs, as well as the important issue of trust, which has been coming up throughout the panels held here since yesterday. Thank you very much indeed, General Issa. Last, but certainly not least, on my left, le général de division, Abou Issa, est le chef d'état-major de l'armée de terre du Bénin, poste qu'il occupe depuis avril 2022. Le général a précédemment occupé plusieurs postes de haute responsabilité, notamment chef d'état-major de la garde nationale, chef d'état-major adjoint de l'armée de terre, directeur du matériel des armées et directeur du cabinet militaire du président de la République béninoise. C'est quelque chose que nous avons en commun d'avoir travaillé avec le président. Donc le général Abou est détenteur de plusieurs diplômes de hautes études, notamment un diplôme d'école de guerre obtenu à Beijing en 2012, un diplôme d'état-major obtenu en 2017 au Bénin, un cours de perfectionnement d'officier subalterne en 2001, officier d'actif de l'Académie militaire d'Antsirabe au Madagascar en 90, et enfin un baccalauréat série D au Sénégal en 1986. Mon général, la parole est à vous.
Merci bien, mon général. En attendant que le diapo soit projeté, j'avoue que quand j'ai vu le sujet, je me suis interrogé sur l'objectif poursuivi. Parce que pour moi, le mot « renforcer » avait beaucoup de sens et a toujours beaucoup de sens parce qu'on ne peut renforcer que ce qui existe. Alors la question, c'est de savoir, est-ce que les armées africaines ont des capacités interopérables? Je crois que non. Par contre, nous avons pris l'habitude de travailler ensemble, chacun vient avec ce qu'il a et on essaie de se mettre ensemble pour faire quelque chose, mais on n'a pas encore un orchestre qui puisse jouer en toute harmonie. Donc l'objectif, j'ai cru comprendre que, en fait, on me demande ce qu'il faut faire pour mettre en place des armées interopérables. C'est comme ça que j'ai compris le sujet, moi. Merci, mon général. Voilà, donc, en introduction, je dirais que l'intégration des armées africaines est une question complexe et s'inscrit dans le cadre plus large de l'intégration africaine. En effet, l'Union africaine vise à promouvoir la paix, la sécurité, la stabilité sur le continent. et l'intégration des armées africaines par sous-région pourrait être un moyen d'atteindre ces objectifs. Pourtant, malgré les discours sur la solidarité régionale, les forces armées peinent véritablement à opérer de manière intégrée. Voilà. La définition, vous l'avez donnée déjà, donc je n'insiste pas là-dessus. Elle est presque la même. On dirait que nous avons fait un travail de groupe, mais on nous demande tous, tout un chacun de nous, de restituer. Alors, je vais développer ce sujet à travers les défis et partir de quelques initiatives que nous avons en commun aujourd'hui, enfin, c'est-à-dire toutes les opérations qui sont faites à travers le continent pour pouvoir aboutir aux perspectives. Alors, les défis majeurs que nous avons, il y en a, j'ai relevé 7, il y en a beaucoup, hein, mais j'ai relevé 7 pour rester dans le créneau horaire. Le tout premier, c'est d'abord les barrières linguistiques et culturelles. Les héritages coloniaux, chacun de nous dans cette salle, nous le savons très bien, il y a au moins 5 langues que nous parlons là. Les espaces coloniaux donc ont fragmenté l'espace sécuritaire ouest-africain. La coexistence de langues officielles, français, anglais, portugais et j'en passe, crée des obstacles de communication opérationnelle et doctrinale. Je m'en vais, pour exemple, la première intervention hier du général algérien, je crois qu'il a fallu courir à gauche à droite pour trouver des kits d'interprètes afin de pouvoir savoir ce qu'il dit. Donc cela illustre très bien les difficultés que nous avons quand nous ne parlons pas la même langue. Le second défi concerne l'incompatibilité technique et logistique. Mes prédécesseurs l'ont déjà abordé, je ne vais pas insister trop. Le troisième également été abordé, c'est l'hétérogénéité doctrinale et les formations différentielles. Chacun de nous, selon qu'on soit arabophone, francophone ou autre, nous avons des écoles très différentes et les formations très, très diversifiées. Le quatrième défi que nous devons relever si nous voulons être interopérables, concerne les faiblesses des cadres de coordination. Les structures existantes, c'est-à-dire CEDEAO, G5 Sahel, Initiative d'Accra, souffrent de manque de financement, de manque de financement, de leadership politique et de continuité stratégique. Le chef de l'État l'a dit hier, il faut que nous nous regardions en face pour nous dire la vérité si nous voulons aller de l'avant. Donc, c'est des réalités que nous ne devons pas cacher, sinon on ne sortira pas de cette situation.
Otherwise, we want to leave this
Alors, le cinquième défi,
so the fifth challenge,
le cinquième défi concerne les tensions politiques.
is related to political tensions,
Bien entendu, cela entraîne des déficits
which brings
de
also
confiance
a trust
entre les
breach between states.
Si nous avons actuellement beaucoup
deficit,
d'opérations sur le continent africain, c'est parce que, entre autres,
We have so many operations in
certains États
Africa. It's
s'affrontent,
because some countries
soit en
fight
interne,
each
soit
other
entre États.
internally or between
certains
states.
font face à des guerres civiles, je dirais,
Some
notamment
have
quand
civil
on prend le
wars.
cas, de la Somalie et du
In
Soudan.
the case of
aujourd'hui.
Somalia and
C'est une
Sudan,
réalité
like today, it
qui
is
ne
a
favorise
reality.
pas l'intégration,
And that is not
l'interopérabilité entre les armées.
improving the integration and interoperability
Le
of
sixième
armies.
défi
The sixth challenge
qui est à la mode, c'est le souverainisme étatique.
is that the state sovereignty.
C'est une réalité également.
It is
Les
a
États
reality.
africains sont souvent
Most of
réticents à
African
céder
states
leur souveraineté en matière de
reluctant
défense et de sécurité. Et c'est un
when
obstacle.
it comes to interoperability of armies.
Le septième,
Seventh,
pour finir avec les
just
défis
to finish with
choses,
challenges,
à relever, il concerne, entre autres,
it is
les conflits régionaux et
regional
guerres civiles.
conflict
Je l'ai déjà abordé
and
d'ailleurs.
civil wars.
Ces conflits, je l'ai cité, c'est le Soudan
I
aujourd'hui.
cited
C'est,
conflict
le Soudan
in
et le Soudan,
Sudan,
on a connu cette bagarre-là.
Sudan
On a
and
connu
South
également,
Sudan,
la Somalie,
and
qui est
also
pratiquement,
Somalia,
qui est devenue deux États.
that has become
Même
two
si
states
l'autre n'est
today,
pas reconnu encore.
although the other one is not recognized officially.
Ceci met fin
This puts an end
à la partie défi,
to the part of challenges,
mais je dis bien, il y a d'autres.
but there are more
Et
challenges,
ça me
of
permet
course.
d'aborder le second point,
But
qui est en
now
fait
let me go to the second part
relatif
that is related
à
to
des missions, à des opérations qui ont cours où
that is
plusieurs
related
États se
to the
retrouvent. Mais
missions
ça ne veut pas dire que nous travaillons
in states,
en
but it doesn't mean that
interopérabilité.
we are all
Ça, c'est
interoperable.
important, parce qu'il faut faire
It
cette
is
nuance.
very important because you have this alliance,
Et j'ai essayé de relever 6 parmi
and I have 6 examples here
ces initiatives en cours.
with
La
initiatives
première concerne la force africaine en attente,
that
qui est
are
en
there.
fait,
And we had
en
standby
réalité,
forces.
c'est marqué sur le papier.
It is
Mais
written
sur
on
le
the
terrain, en
paper,
réalité,
but
cette
on
force
the
n'existe
ground,
pas.
that force doesn't exist, the standby force. The
C'est une
African
initiative de l'Union
standby.
africaine.
It is a force of
La deuxième
African
initiative
Union.
que je vais énumérer
The second initiative
concerne la coopération régionale.
is
Et là, nous
about
allons
regional
retrouver tout ce qui est
cooperation.
comme CEDEAO,
We talk about ECOWAS,
SADC,
we talk about SADC,
ECOMOG, bien entendu, c'est
ECOMOG,
ECOWAS qui était ECOWAS en temps. Et c'est
which was ECOWAS.
ce qui concerne l'ECOMOG, la CEDEAO et autres, ont fait
so-
leur preuve au Libéria.
So
Sierra
ECOMOG
Leone,
has just operated in
je dirais en Gambie.
Liberia and Sierra
Et côté
Leone.
Gambie, effectivement,
and
c'est
Gambia.
en bilatéral surtout.
It
en
is
ce qui
mostly
concerne-
in
et ça implique
bilateral initiatives,
surtout le Sénégal.
especially
Le
with the
et la
Senegal.
Gambie ont pendant longtemps
Senegal
travaillé
and
pour
Gambia worked together
sauvegarder la paix et la sécurité
to
dans
maintain
ce pays.
peace and security in the country.
La troisième, le troisième exemple que je vais donner,
The
c'est
third example
l'initiative d'Accra qui est en
is
fait
the
une
Accra
initiative
initiative,
mort-née.
Which was did
Elle a
not
été
become
initiée en
fruitful.
2017.
It has been initiated in
Malheureusement,
2017. Unfortunately,
Alice, dès qu'on a voulu la mettre en place, il y a eu déjà des problèmes de financement.
there were
Et les
issues
partenaires
regarding
occidentaux
funding
ont
where
bien
the
voulu
partners
nous
didn't
aider.
want just to help us.
Mais entre-temps, des problèmes
Meanwhile,
politiques
we had
sont
political issues
apparus
that
dans
appeared
certains pays,
in some
notamment
countries.
les pays du
We can give the
Sahel,
example of
le
Sahel
Mali, le Burkina et
countries like Mali,
le
Burkina
Niger,
Faso,
parce que
and
cette
Niger.
force était destinée à
Because
soutenir
that
ces
force
pays-là pour faire
was
face,
supposed to support
à,
those countries so that they may face.
pour suppléer le G5 Sahel
to
et faire
support.
face. C'est la contribution en fait des
It was
pays
meant to
du Golfe de
contribute
Guinée qui devraient apporter leur aide
by giving the
aux pays
help
du Sahel pour qu'ils
to those
faisaient face
Sahel
à la
countries
pègre terroriste.
to face
Le
the terrorist
quatrième point,
attacks.
exemple que je vais donner, c'est l'Alliance
Another
des États du Sahel.
example is Alliance of Sahel States, Sahel
Alliance-
States Alliance.
Non, la force autant pour moi, la force multinationale mixte
But
qui est basée
before
en
that,
N'Djamena.
it is
Le
multinational
général en
force
a abordé tout à l'heure.
based in N'Djamena.
Elle existe et elle continue de
This
lutter
force
dans le
exists
bassin du lac Tchad pour
and
faire face
is
au terrorisme de
operational
Boko
in
Haram.
Chad Basin.
Et la toute dernière
And the last
qui a été
one
mise en place,
that has
c'est
been put in
l'Alliance des
place
États du Sahel.
is the
Elle
Sahel
a
States
commencé par
Alliance that
travailler, mais nous
started to
attendons
work.
les résultats.
But we're
pour
still
voir.
waiting for
Mais
the
pour l'instant,
results
je ne
to
pense pas trop
see
que ce soit une alliance intégrée.
how
Donc,
it is going to be
qui mène,
integrated.
la lutte, parce que les équipements, comme on l'a dit, ne sont pas
Because
les mêmes.
with
Donc,
equipment,
ça nécessite
as
beaucoup de
it
choses.
has been said, requires a lot of
Et
things
enfin,
to be functional.
il y a des partenariats
And then we
bilatéraux.
have bilateral
Pas de
partnerships.
partenariat, ce n'est pas que
It's
c'est interopérable, pas
It's
du
not
tout. Nous,
interoperable
dans ce cas, nous
necessarily.
avons, par exemple,
We have,
le
for
Bénin
instance,
travaille
Benin
avec le
that
Togo
works
à
together
la
with
frontière
Togo
ouest
at the
du
border,
Bénin et est du
at the
Togo,
border
ce qui
between
fait
the two
que
countries.
sur cette zone,
In that
il y a très
area,
peu
we had very
d'attaques
few
terroristes parce que on travaille ensemble.
terrorist attacks
Mais
because
chacun
of that
avec ses
cooperation.
moyens.
But
Il y a
everyone
rien,
uses
comme
their
étant commun.
means, which are not necessarily
Et,
interoperable.
bien entendu, il y a le Sénégal et la
And then
Gambie
we
aussi,
have
comme je l'ai cité.
Senegal
ça
and
continue.
Gambia
Alors,
that
donc pour moi,
continues. So for me,
j'ai relevé les défis, j'ai
I have showed you the challenges.
cité quelques
I
exemples
have cited some
de
examples
travail en commun.
of
Maintenant,
joint
qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire
operations.
pour que nous puissions
So what could we do
vraiment être
so that
interopérables?
we could
C'est
be
le troisième point.
interoperable? This is
C'est
the last
les perspectives
point.
stratégiques pour
What are the
une
strategic
interopérabilité effective. J'avais déjà dit que
thinking
pour moi,
of
elle n'existe pas encore.
an effective interoperability?
Alors, nous
Effective
devons,
is
dans
the
un
key
premier
word.
temps, favoriser
we need-
l'apprentissage linguistique
We need to
et les
improve
échanges
the language
interculturels
learning
entre les armées.
and cultural exchange
D'abord, ça c'est la
between
première chose. Donc,
armies. This is
il
the
faut qu'on
first
arrive à
element.
intégrer
We
des
need to
modules de langue,
integrate language
des modules de
modules,
langue dans
language modules,
les formations, notamment les
trainings,
formations officielles.
especially official training.
Commençons tout au moins par
By
les
starting
officiers, qui sont les
At
cadres des
least
armées.
with the officers,
Et on arrivera
because they are the cadres in the army,
progressivement
so that it can go progressively
Mais dans ce cas, je crois
to
que
others.
s'il faut aller vite dans une intégration, je crois
So
qu'elle
if
doit
we
être
need to
d'abord
go
linguistique.
fast, we need to start with the language.
Dans ce
with
sens,
the
par exemple,
language
tous les pays qui
learning.
parlent arabe, s'ils arrivent à aller au-delà de leur querelle politique, ils pourraient facilement travailler.
So that
Donc,
it
tout le
can
Maghreb,
be
donc l'Afrique du
easy
Nord, qui
for
peut même
Maghreb
s'étendre au Tchad
region
et au
and
Soudan.
other
Tout
countries
cela
so
doit
that
travailler.
they can be
Et pour ne pas aller trop
interoperable.
loin, je crois que même le Rwanda aussi peut travailler
think
avec
Rwanda
le Burundi, parce que déjà,
could work with Burundi
ces deux
easily
pays-là ont
because the
pratiquement
two countries
la
have
même langue,
practically
la même culture.
the
Donc ce
same
serait plus facile pour eux.
language
Et
and the
pour
same
nous autres,
culture. It would be easier for
francophones,
them.
on
And
pourrait
for
travailler
us,
ensemble également. Mais
francophones, we
il faut
could work
tout
together.
d'abord qu'on ait
However, we should have
cette base
the
linguistique.
basis, the
Le
linguistic
deuxième point,
basis.
c'est développer une
The
base
second
industrielle et
base
technologique
is
de défense.
to develop
Parce
a
que
defense
les
technological
équipements,
and
chacun les
industrial
achète là où il
base.
veut. Tantôt de
Everyone
la
is
Turquie, tantôt de
buying
la Chine,
from
de la
wherever,
France, des
from
États-Unis.
China, from
Tout
Turkey,
ce
from US,
mélange-là ne permet pas
and
de
that
vraiment de
mixity is not
minimiser les
allowing
coûts
to reduce the cost, first of
de
all,
l'utilisation de ces équipements-là.
for the use of the equipment.
Le troisième point concerne
Third point
le
is
renforcement de la
enhancing
coopération en matière de renseignement. Je crois que
intelligence cooperation.
cet aspect-là peut
I
même
think
démarrer dès
this
demain
aspect
si les
should
protocoles existent.
start even tomorrow if we
Parce que ça
have
ne
the
demande
right
pas
protocols.
grand-chose. On peut
Because it
déjà
doesn't
commencer
require
par ça.
a lot, we should start with that first of all.
Le quatrième point
A fourth point
concerne
is
le
financement.
financement. Vous savez
Funding.
que les pays africains sont réputés pour ne pas payer les cotisations.
You know that
Or,
African
sans argent,
countries sometimes they don't
malheureusement,
pay
on peut pas
the
faire tourner
dues, and without
ces
money,
institutions-là, on peut pas
usually
faire
it's
tourner
very
une armée.
hard
Donc, il
to
faut que
run
nous apprenions à
institutions.
payer nos
So
cotisations.
we need to learn how to pay our
Et
dues.
un cinquième point, nous
fees.
devons
And
dépasser
then
les clivages
we
politiques
need
et renforcer les
to
alliances
go
existantes.
beyond the political
Tout le monde sait
divisions.
qu'aujourd'hui, entre la
and then
CEDEAO et
alliances.
l'AES, rien ne va. Entre le Bénin et
You
le
know
Niger,
that
ça ne va pas très bien.
ECOWAS
Et entre
and
le Mali et l'Algérie non
AES,
plus.
it doesn't
Et
work.
j'en-
You know, between Benin and
je vais
Niger,
pas continuer.
there are issues. Mali and
Ensuite,
Algeria, there are issues.
le sixième point que je vais aborder,
So
c'est
the other
consolider le
point
leadership des
is
organisations régionales.
consolidate the organization
Nos organisations
leadership
régionales manquent
in the region.
de leadership parce qu'il faut des
We
hommes
know
politiques
that,
forts capables de porter
We need
vraiment
strong
ces
regional
organisations
organization,
À certaines positions, je
regional
dirais,
organization,
nous devons
so that
accroître
we can move
les
forward.
capacités de
We need to
formation en commun.
increase training
Donc, c'est comment créer
capacities,
des écoles
joint
qui reçoivent
training capacities.
plusieurs pays à la fois. Donc, c'est un bon fondement, c'est une bonne fondation
So this
pour
is a
que
good
demain nous puissions
base,
pouvoir, avec,
so that,
en réglant
we
les autres
can,
problèmes, travailler ensemble,
Solve
travailler
many
en
problems
interopérabilité.
and then
Le huitième point
operate
concerne,
together. The eighth point,
on doit commencer par opérer ensemble, faire
we need to
des
start working
exercices
together, to do
ensemble.
exercises
Mes
together.
prédécesseurs l'ont déjà abordé, je ne vais pas trop insister.
I think this was
Parce qu'il faut commencer
mentioned
par s'entraîner
quite
d'abord avant
well.
d'aller à la guerre. Ce n'est pas le jour de la guerre que
It's not on the day of the war that we go together. We need to operate together. We need to allow just to leave a part of sovereignty and then work together. We need to accept that sovereignty is a good thing, but we need to allow that follow-up could be happening. If there is an enemy that goes into another country, we should allow at least that is an element of sovereignty that goes with it, so that the enemy may be pursued. So, concluding, I think that interoperability between African armies is not only a technical issue, it requires a vision, a whole vision, a holistic vision, and then this requires a common willingness and institutional mechanisms that are really solid to reinforce trust and the neutralization of armies. So I believe armies will work together and work with the same efficiency in the face of the threats that go beyond the capacity of states individually. We say most of the time that union is the strength. Thank you very much.
Mon général, merci beaucoup réellement pour un exposé, encore une fois, très clair, très concret et très honnête surtout. Vous avez opéré une remise en question honnête de la situation actuelle des capacités intégrales de coordination entre partenaires africains, au-delà des discours, comme vous l'avez dit. Vous avez parlé de la complexité du problème, mais vous avez exposé de manière très concrète les défis majeurs auxquels nous faisons face, notamment les barrières linguistiques et culturelles et d'autres aspects que je pense résonnent avec tout le monde dans cette salle. Et vous avez terminé sur un point aussi important que sensible, qui est celui de la concession d'une partie de nos souverainetés dans le cadre d'aboutir à cette interopérabilité que nous cherchons tous. Shifting back to English, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all truly appreciate that our three distinguished panelists have truly provided us with uniquely enlightening insights on the issue of interoperability in the context of African land forces in particular, as well as with our partners. We will now be inviting comments, contributions, or questions from the audience, particularly the land forces commanders and heads of delegation seated on around this round table. If you wish to intervene, I will request that you kindly press the button in front of you on your microphone. You will state your name, your position, and the country you represent here, because our declining eyesight doesn't always allow us to read on your tags from a distance. But let me start by taking advantage of my privilege as a moderator by asking the first question, which can build on more or less on the last intervention. And the question is the following. Any member of the panel should feel free to respond. What frameworks or partnership could best strengthen Africa's interoperability with our non-African partners while preserving a reasonable level of regional autonomy, which touches more or less on the issue of sovereignty, but from a perspective of, from a regional perspective. Thank you very much. If you wish to respond right now, go ahead. Otherwise, I will take more questions from the
question.
The panel will be responding to this question maybe as we proceed, but in the meantime, there's a, I think it is Chad, Senegal.
Yes.
Senegal, go ahead.
So, thank you, sir. Thank you, panelists, for your insightful ideas, very relevant. I just come to ECOWAS, that I know well because I am part of it, and saying that General Youssoufou, yes, you said it all. When you say that ECOWAS has doctrines, it is real, really. I do remember that the plan, the strategy was to have 2 standby battalions, one focalized, one satellized by Senegal at the western of the community, and one by Nigeria. And I do remember that 2007, we in Senegal, we trained this battalion, we were given the responsibility. Maybe some of the participants has a remembrance on that. 2007, I was deputy of the battalion that organized the exercise in Senegal. And there you had Gambia, you had Mali, you had Burkina Faso, you had Guinea. So they took part of the exercise. And the counterpart of the Nigerian battalion came in the staff to see how we organize it. 2007. So in terms of equipment, yes, Gambians, of course, come with the equipment. They were nearby. Mali come with its equipment. Burkina Faso, because of the deployment by air, they just bring the people and we give them vehicles and equipment. Just to say that ECOWAS really had pushed. So the following should be the battalion satellized by Nigeria. But you can correct me, I never heard about they conduct one exercise. But the Western Battalion did it at the time. So it is just to say also, in terms of interoperability, the difficulty was the equipment, of course. Sometimes the languages, as the General from Benin highlighted it, because Gambia, they are English-speaking, Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau, they are Portuguese-speaking. So they are Portuguese-speaking. So, but what the point I want to raise in my question to General Yusuf and maybe General Issa, to what extent the responsibility of the community, the ECOWAS community, is engaged when it comes to equipment to these troops? So for me, because for me, the units in each country were designated. And sometimes ECOWAS was inspecting them to say that they are the unit dedicated to ECOWAS. So why the community should not try to buy equipment, give them to the units in the countries, so that we follow on of this material, so that you can train on this material, so that when you need them, you just call them and they come. You see that we were very surprised in Mali. ECOWAS did nothing in Mali because we were not ready to tackle the situation. But if we had this equipment in each country, and sometimes the training, as we did in 2007, where is conduct, I feel that it should be very easy. In 1 week, I don't know, less than 1 month to mobilize all these teams and to project them. So to what extent the responsibility of the community is engaged? This is my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I will ask my neighbor on the right to respond, but a quick reminder, interoperability from a technical dimension. So we were told at the beginning of this conference that to signal that you wish to speak, you can press the left button on your microphone. I will be able to see the name of the country that wishes to take the floor. So let's start interoperability from right here in this room. left button in front of you. I will see your name, your country, and I'll allow you to speak.
Thank you, moderator. Also, thank you, General from Senegal. You raised a very fundamental issue. But I'm happy to state that we have former Chief of Staff of the ECOWAS standby force. Maybe he'll make a few comments. But let me state that, as you rightly mentioned, Nigeria had designated a battalion. I think if I can remember, 195 battalion were designated as ECOWAS standby force for that purpose. And they've trained, and also they were equipped, you know. But I think along the line, the issue of funding is very, a big challenge. Deployment is not an easy task. You know, you must have the resources, the funding, logistics that you have to deploy, the welfare, the kitting, not just matter of the fighting equipment. So, you rightly said, I think ECOWAS challenge, and in most cases, even the AU, they have problems of funding. So unless that issue is resolved, they will find it very difficult to engage, in any meaningful, engagement of operations, to counter any challenge. So, with your permission, moderator, the former Chief of Staff, ECOWAS standby force can make a comment.
Thank you very much, sir. And I want to sincerely thank the speakers for the insight into the subject. For clarity, sir, the standby arrangement on the continent and at the regional level has changed. The old arrangement of having 2 battalions, one on the east and one on the west, has also been modified. What we now have is a whole brigade force in the ECOWAS region. And the arrangement is that during the pledging, each country will pledge a particular capability to the standby force. For example, Nigeria has a whole infantry brigade, an infantry battalion, a signal squadron, an aviation squadron, and a maritime component pledged to the ECOWAS standby force. Senegal has an infantry company and an artillery battery. Niger pledged an aircraft and also a mechanized company. So different countries pledge. So what happens is that at the core task force headquarters in Abuja, the Chief of Staff of the ECOWAS standby force and his team go around all these countries to visit those designated units and inspect them and see their equipment. And along that same line, trainings are provided for all these forces across the world. And a register is maintained in Abuja to see who has been trained and where the person has been trained and the capability that has been given to that force. Benin Republic is responsible at the regional level for training our forces on demining capability. And equally important is the fact that the ECOWAS standby force actually has a mobile headquarters with vehicles, office equipment, all tentages, and so many other things. And that mobile headquarters is stationed in Ghana for any operation. So, and we also have other equipment that are presently in Abuja that were given to ECOWAS by donor countries. Once in a while, we conduct trainings on all these things. And we also inform the audience that the ECOWAS region in the last 10 years, 4 training exercises have been conducted, including the one that was done in South Africa, the Amani Accord. We have Jigi 1, Jigi 2, Jigi 3. The Jigi 4, which was supposed to take place in 2021, was cut short because of the COVID pandemic. And the exercise is being looked at again, and the National Defense College in Abuja is going to be the host for the planning element for the exercise to hold. So this much has been done. However, the difficulty in interoperability, like the panelists have said, remains a very serious problem. One, language. Two, equipment compatibility. And most importantly, in the equipment compatibility has been communication equipment. The United States gave African Union and the REX communication capability. And I think the North African rapid capability rejected what was supposed to be erected in Libya. However, one was erected in Nigeria, one in Nairobi for the East African Standby Force, and the one in Addis for ASF. After 1 year of usage, the Americans have slammed African Standby Force and the REX with $1 million each for those equipment. And as it is now, well, I don't think we can pay that money, so they are there. So it's for us to see how we help ourselves in terms of communication. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for a comprehensive answer to the question that was asked, that is highly relevant. I can quickly say that on the part of EAC, the East African community as well, we conduct, but I speak under the authority of our Army Chief, but I can confirm that the EAC Standby Force conducts annual evaluation exercises to assess the status of readiness in each member state, both personnel and equipment. And it's an exercise that is usually led by the force commander. But while this, as far as I know, the exercise has been conducted in a way that is satisfactory, I remember asking the former force commander whether they were also looking into the compatibility between what was found in each member state, and the response I got was maybe not precise enough for me to draw any conclusion. We can take the next question. I believe it's you haven't pressed the button. It's for me to see which country it is. C'est le Tchad, je pense, non? Allez-y, mon général.
Yes.
Merci pour la brillante présentation sur la question d'interopérabilité des forces africaines. Moi, personnellement, je crois que l'interopérabilité existe au niveau de la CEDEAO, CAC et au sein de la force mixte multinationale du bassin du lac Tchad. Mais il y a des défis à relever, et les défis sont entre autres les barrières linguistiques, je crois, à mon avis, avec la nouvelle technologie. La barrière linguistique n'est pas assez compliquée, ce n'est pas un grand défi, étant donné que nous sommes dans cette salle de conférence et nous communiquons directement des uns et des autres. Le défi que je voudrais relever, surtout, il y a l'inefficacité de certains contingents au sein de la force multinationale. La généralité, il y a l'inefficacité de certains bataillons ou certaines unités affectées sur le théâtre d'opération. Ça, c'est le premier point. Le deuxième point, manque de financement. Parfois, le pays participant n'honore pas leur engagement. Troisièmement, la modernisation des équipements de la communication que presque tout le monde a déjà parlé de cette question, et aussi l'intégration de la nouvelle technologie et mettre l'accent sur la formation et des exercices conjoints pour prouver notre capacité opérationnelle interarmée. Merci.
Thank you very much, Mon Général. Any panelist would wish to react to that? Please go ahead.
Merci, Mon Général.
Thank you, General.
Alors, ma préoccupation, c'est...
My worry
vrai, parce que si
it is true.
Le général le reconnaît,
if the general knows that there is inefficiencies in languages, in funding, in communication, I don't know what we have with interoperability, because this is the minimum to be interoperable. Because here we communicate because we have interpreters in the booth. On the ground, it's not easy to have interpreters with both so that we can have good exchanges. So interoperability is very complex and requires a certain number of joint actions. In the language, in the transmission, the communications, in the motorized and mechanized equipment, and then we don't have the same training. Efficiency that you say is going to happen because this depends on how you're trained and where you're trained. This is what I want to say.
Merci. Mon Général, je pense que
Thank you, General. I think the answer is clear.
Can we take... Oh, please.
Thank you very much. I wanted to respond to one of your questions, that the frameworks or partnership that could best strengthen African interoperability with global partners while preserving our regional autonomy. I wanted to just give my thoughts that we already have an existing African Union with Peace and Security Council that can authorize some of the regional standby forces to intervene in situations where there are security challenges. And the only challenge that I see is that do we, on those pledged forces, are they available? Are they ready to be deployed on a short notice? I think that is the biggest challenge. We have all of us within the regional blocks that we come from, we have pledged those forces, but we are not very sure that they can be deployed on a short notice. The other point that I wanted to make is we have a lot of training opportunities that we are undertaking within the regional blocks, within the regions, and we have quite a big exchange in terms of knowledge, in terms of international peace support training institutions, and we are exchanging students in our colleges, staff courses, and we are doing exercises. I think this is a very good step forward towards standardizing our thoughts, standardizing our processes, so that when we are called upon to respond, at least to a certain minimal level, we are able to start on a common ground. The other thing that is more critical is strengthening the level of bilateral engagement within the regions. I think in most often, we are always looking at multilateralism, the UN coming in. But if we have stronger bilateral relationships among the regions, we will be able to respond more effectively in situations of calamities in a more efficient and effective way. Thank you.
Please. Thank you very much, General. That was, again, a very clear and useful comment. I will have to ask permission from the Master of Ceremony. It is essentially, the time is over, but we started late. So I don't know if I'll get permission to take. Okay. Permission granted to me, Mon Général, s'il vous plaît.
Je vais essayer de répondre à Monsieur le Général.
I'd like to answer the General with the same language that he used. And then it is a challenge solved. So it was a challenge. The language is a challenge. But we're talking about interoperability. In Rwanda, we are going to propose interoperability system in the language. So with this gadget, we have solved one of these challenges in Kigali.
Merci beaucoup, mon général.
Thank you very much, General.
I have a question on the right. I'm unable to see which country it is. Please state it.
Thank you very much. Air Vice Marshal Obadike. When I press, it's showing Qatar, but I'm from Nigeria. I just want to bring up, a lot have been said, but I look at the issue of interoperability under 3 domains. We have the issue of human, we have the issue of technical, and we have the issue of procedural. For the human area, the key things that have been mentioned is the issue of mutual trust and understanding, which is very important. In the issue of technical, we have standardization. And we can borrow from other regions. NATO has the standard that have standardized most of the things they are doing. Can we pursue such a standard? Then in the issue of procedural, we have the doctrine and processes. But I just have 2 questions, which is also very important. In the African context, in the face of limited funding, how do we achieve interoperability when some of our armies are still having legacy systems and others are having modern systems? It's very important if anybody can throw light on that. Also, how do we achieve interoperability when we have different national priorities? How does our national priorities align with the need for interoperability? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General Sir. Anyone would want to take that on? Mon Général.
Merci, mon général. Je crois que ce sujet est d'actualité. C'est un vrai problème, je veux dire. D'autant plus que nous sommes dans des pays où tout est urgent. On a besoin d'écoles, de routes, d'eau, de centres de santé. Donc parfois, les gouvernements, les gouvernants sont obligés de faire des choix très très difficiles. Moderniser aujourd'hui une armée n'est plus une priorité pour certains États, sauf quand ils font face à des problèmes sécuritaires comme actuellement ce que connaissent les pays du Sahel et les pays du Golfe de Guinée. Des efforts sont en train d'être faits pour que nous ayons des équipements modernes, mais je suis convaincu qu'une fois la crise sécuritaire passée, on va retomber encore dans l'oubli en tant que militaire. L'armée en Afrique n'a jamais été une priorité dans beaucoup de pays. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, mon général. If you allow me, I will ask my neighbor on the right, the general, to respond to the question I asked earlier. I will restate it. I asked what frameworks or partnerships in Africa could best strengthen interoperability with our external partners, with our global partners, while preserving a reasonable level of regional autonomy, because it is something that came up earlier during previous panels as well. General Sir, please.
Thank you very much. I think what Air Vice Marshal Professor Obadike said, those questions are also relevant to this particular question which you raised. But primarily, national interest should be a priority. And cultural norms, sensitivities, must be taken into consideration. And this is global standard, and it's very key in that respect. That's the guidelines, the doctrine, the procedures, the techniques must take into consideration those sensitivities. And I think the UN has always, emphasized on that. Cultural sensitivities, religious sensitivities, and so on, social factors to be considered in whatever interoperability you want to do in terms of your training, the equipment, and so on. Well, coming to the question asked by our respected and highly resourceful moderator, the frameworks are already on the ground. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We already have the AU-led frameworks, which are quite essential. We have seen what's happened in Sudan, in Darfur, what is happening in AMISOM, and so on. So I think once we were able to achieve that and maintain it, and tailored towards a sustainable partnership program, it's not an ad hoc arrangement. This is where a permanent headquarters needs to be an operational headquarters, not an ad hoc arrangement, need to be in place, which can both serve peacetime and operational period or conflict period, including disaster management. But very importantly, the African ownership of these missions, must be their goal. They must take the ownership and they must decide. There must be political buy-in of the various governments, and then the strategic military direction are further, implemented, or those decisions are guided, in the operational, environment. So it's very important. We must take ownership, and we must not continuously, continue to rely on external relations. For now, it's important because we need to develop, those capacities, and we need that technical capabilities. And but at a certain point, we need to take over and make sure that we get it right technically. And this framework and partnership, for example, as I've said, the multinational joint task force, which is a hybrid model, including the AU, then the Lake Chad Basin Commission countries, as well as EU, the US, France, who have provided logistics and training, and including testing of some of this equipment, are very fundamental. I've mentioned AMISOM, which is also a hybrid, a complex operation for that matter, with AU, UN, and EU partnership. This is a fundamental framework with the AU managing the military operations. But I know the funding, the logistics, mostly come from these partners. We need to sustain them now, but we need to have a model that we can finance and fund it sufficiently by the African countries. And with time, even the technical aspect can be taken over, as well as the funding, but we will not leave others or other partners, at any point. They must be part of whatever we are doing. This is an era of globalization. You cannot do things alone. Even if you are fighting war, you must look for coalition partners that you'll be able to achieve. Legitimacy is very fundamental. You must get that legitimacy through the AU, the UN, and the regional organizations, and the world body in general. So on this note, I want to say thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. Perhaps one last question, if there is any. Otherwise, I'll proceed with a very few concluding points. Any question, contribution, comment? I've been granted more time. Please, Blyden.
One of the things that I was asked when I was coming out was if there was interest amongst the land forces for secure telecommunications. And it stemmed from a conversation that was around the use of WhatsApp as a form of communication mostly used on the continent. When I worked in the Pentagon, I mostly had to turn over my phone every day from conversations that I'd had on WhatsApp because that was the main form of communication with African forces. And I know that many of you communicate across WhatsApp, which is a secure communication, but not in the way that I would expect security forces to have to talk. What is the, I don't know, I would say, what is the constraint to adopting and adapting to using a secure form of telecommunications for operations as well as general communications and interoperability? Thanks.
Very important question right there.
Je vais tenter de répondre à Madame.
I would like to try to answer to Madame.
Les communications comme WhatsApp ne sont pas du tout sécurisées.
WhatsApp communications are not secure. This is not what we think. So this requires that we have to deploy our own resources, because every time when we depend to someone else to help us, it means that our communication will be heard or run the risk of being heard or being intercepted. That's it.
Well, thank you, Ms. Chidi. I think your reference to WhatsApp, I know public, means of communication, I don't think it is secured. I did mention, earlier in 1993-94, when we were operating the MRSAT, it has developed into much more better communication system now than we have them. We must design those in the technical field, specific to our own needs and our environment, well secured, and we should have the domain, whatever you call it, the base, under our own control. Not somebody having the base somewhere and then, controls it. No communication is really secured until you are sure you are the one that have the authority to give or to take or to share. Thank you.
If I may just offer one suggestion to that. The General from Benin offered that language challenges have become part of the issue, that interoperability through language and communication is problematic. With advances in artificial intelligence and technology, there is in the moment translation that it can happen. Next week I'll be in Uganda at an artificial intelligence conference with over 2,000 youths. And today we're going to test a call where all of us who are coming to this conference from around the world will be on one Microsoft Teams call, and we will have in the moment translation in over 17 languages. So you could technically have not interpreters in a booth, but a piece of software on your phone that allows you to have that telecommunication interoperability and just to get that divide. And then also if you wanted to use secret languages, there are over 800 African languages that the 5 superpowers cannot understand. Find those ones to use for yourself as an intelligence tip.
Thank you very much. That was a very nice way of ending this conversation in a very concrete way. I just wonder if this issue doesn't also have to do with the famous question of trust, mutual trust between us, because I suspect many of the countries here use military-grade security communication internally. But are they ready to share those with the neighbors and with partners? That's a different question. But the AI point we just heard is actually very important, because we're actually already there. We need less than we think to achieve interoperability from a technological perspective. Let me conclude this conversation by thanking you very much, and also by saying that I have a sense that we've covered this issue of interoperability comprehensively. We covered the 3 dimensions: technical, human, procedural. From the perspective of the current status, the challenges at hand, and even the possible way forwards. And it seems to me that we agree on almost everything. We agree on what our situation is today in a very honest way. We agree on what the challenges. First of all, we agree on the need to establish interoperability as a priority for collective defense and security. But then we agree that we are not there, and we seem to know what we need to do to get there in a very specific ways. So the question we have is, why don't we do what we know we need to do what we want, to get to where we want? Perhaps this conference and this panel is a step towards that, and notes are being taken, documents will be shared, and that will inform hopefully the next symposium where we will be able to reevaluate our situation, but we will not be able to say that we did not know what to do, because we do, and this is going to be recorded for use by each country here, but also collectively. So when we assess our situation again, we will be able to refer to this conversation we just had. I want to thank you very much for your attention, and I want to hand over the mic to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General Patrick, and the excellent panel for your very good delivery. Before I hand over to the administrative MC to guide us through the next item on the program, let me take this opportunity to thank all the moderators and panelists of this symposium for a very well done job. A round of applause to all the panelists and moderators. And a special thanks goes to our heads of delegation and participants for making this event successful, for participating effectively and being part of this symposium. Now I want to hand over to the administrative MC to guide us through the next program. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. At this juncture, we'll have a health break that will help us to prepare for the closing ceremony, and we will let you know shortly when we can come back in. We will use the same procedure as earlier. We will let our heads of delegation and generals present to walk through that door to the second floor, and the rest of us will follow. Thank you.